And hello, everybody. Welcome to Management 573 Project Performance and Management, or Management Performance. It's all the same. This is an exciting class, and frankly, where else to get a good bit of detail about performance than our course book, which is the actual PMBOK Guide, 7th edition. Oh my gosh, this is the home of all project management knowledge. And so the project management guide, the PMBOK guide, the body of knowledge, it's developed to help practitioners as project management professionals concentrate on the valuable information and to make your projects easier, right? So it'll help if you focus on the core of the PMBOK guide in your readings. Every week, read the whole chapter. Week 1, yes, we're covering chapters 1 through 3, so just skim those. The highlights every week will be in the slides and in the lecture, but it's not meant as a substitute for reading the PMBOK guide itself, okay? And both will be useful, the lectures, the slides, and the PMBOK guide on exams as we develop. Now, I just wanted to make a note that the PMBOK guide itself is not a methodology. A methodology, like some programs are, is if I start on page 1 and follow the steps to page 30, I will have a successful blank, whatever I'm going to do. Lean Six Sigma is a methodology. You follow the method. The PMBOK guide is not that. It provides you a framework, and you, the project manager, develop the method. You turn each project into a methodology to achieve your deliverable success. So that's really what it's all about here. The PMBOK guide is a framework, not a methodology. Important point. It is a set of good standards, not best practices. Why? Because a best practice in America might not be a best practice in India or China or in Europe, right? It's a set of good practices applicable worldwide, which is what makes it so valuable. These are applicable worldwide, and then you can incorporate your own local best practices either culturally or corporately, right? Your own corporation may have its own version of best practices. So anyhow, use the PMBOK guide that way. Here are our learning objectives. You can slow down the slides and review them at your leisure. So a lot of companies are using project management today, and there's renewed interest. Here's why. No matter what project you look at, resources are scarce. And project management, especially the PMI version, the Project Management Institute version, which creates the PMP certification, this approach to project management, in using its good practices that are globally accepted, it promises to, if effectively implemented, manage scope, schedule, and cost, those key resources that we're trying to manage and still produce a successful deliverable. So here are multiple examples on this slide of what causes the demand for project managers. But in the end, it's because we deliver successful projects within scope or the requirements that are set out, schedule on time, and cost on budget. Okay, so if you need more motivation to study project management, hey, there are a lot of reasons. One, if you're into voluntary service, voluntary project management for a nonprofit, wildly needed and hugely successful because it's a discipline with an organization that is trying to do good and doesn't have a lot of resources. You could use it in for-profit companies. You could use it in government. In fact, many U.S. government contracts above a dollar amount require certified PMP project managers because they know you have the discipline and skills to bring the project in on schedule, on cost, on scope. right? And because of that, the average project manager in the United States makes $124,000 a year, according to salary studies that PMI has authored or has funded, but allowed an independent organization to collect. It's a pretty good salary for a project manager. And then if you're a project manager in IT, expect a little more. This is not a guarantee of income, but it's an indication. Businesses put money where they see value. And so they wouldn't put this kind of money if they didn't see the value that you project managers deliver. So an IT project manager is going to make even more. What about an IT program manager, which will manage several project managers? Easily $150,000 a year. Those are just samples. I can't guarantee anything, but you can live anywhere. You can work for a profit, you can work for the government, you can work for a nonprofit, and you can make a decent salary which will allow you to achieve your dreams. A house in the country, a picket fence, a dog, happy family. Your choice, your life. It's a good career path if you're suited for it. So, but projects, another reason project management is in so much demand is that projects have gone wrong for so long, right? And so the Standish Group, they are famous for doing studies. One of them was the Chaos Report. You could Google that yourself. It found that 16% of IT projects were successful in meeting scope, schedule, and cost. That's not very good. I think we would all agree. So, and the list goes on and on. Most projects honestly fail, right? Hence our study of this discipline. And so there are lots of advantages to using formal project management listed here on the slides, including lower costs, meaning on budget, improved productivity, better internal coordination with your project team, etc. Okay, so what is a project? All right, simply said, and I use two words. A project is temporary and unique. That's my memorization technique for the definition of a project. Just remember that it's temporary, meaning it has a definite beginning and end date. Projects do end, and as opposed to an operation which continues for the life of the product itself. So a project is temporary. A project is also unique in its deliverable. And that deliverable is defined as either a product, service, or result. Every project, besides being temporary and unique, is something we have to elaborate. Because it's unique, never been done before, we have to elaborate what a project is. And we call that progressive elaboration. That is a word to write down and look up in your PMBOK guide. Progressive elaboration. You will use that a lot. Projects also drive changes in companies, right? Companies start a project because they see a need and your project will fulfill it. So it drives changes. It's basically the quintessential change management. This slide has plenty of examples of project management. I would pause here and review them at your leisure. There's also some video highlights of that PMI puts out of Project of the Year award winners. Very interesting. You could Google those and watch some of those video highlights yourself. Also online, you could find the history of project management and some other perspectives easily done. Okay. Now, every project has attributes. As I mentioned, the definition of a project that it's temporary and unique. So these first two bullets define a project. I already mentioned that a project drives change because a company has chosen your project because they saw a gap between their current state and where they need to be competitive in their market. And so your project is fulfilling that dream from the current state to the next state. And of course, you will work with a project sponsor. That's somebody in senior management who is going to manage your budget and will sign off some key documents like your project management plan. So yes, they are a boss at the high level, but the project is your responsibility, not theirs, because only you can integrate all the knowledge areas in the processes that we are going to look at. So, because only you, the project manager, can understand the constraints. There are lots of constraints on projects, but the most important constraint would be this. The most important constraint would be scope, schedule, and cost as a single network. We call that the triple constraint. A layman's term for it would be the iron triangle. You've probably heard that term. You could Google the iron triangle and click on images to see images of what I'm talking about. But we call it in project management the triple constraint. These are going to constrain your project. And the key to these three is that if I make a change to scope, it will change my schedule and budget. If I make a change to my schedule, it will impact my requirements or scope and my budget. If I make a change to the budget, it will impact how much schedule and requirements I can build, hence the triple constraint. There are lots of other constraints on projects, so you'll notice the triple constraint here: scope, schedule, and cost. But risk will constrain your project. You'll have quality demands for your deliverable, which will also put limits on what you can achieve or do or how fast you can move. And you'll have resource limitations, just to name a few more. There are plenty of others, okay? So we've said a project is temporary and unique. Temporary in its time frame, beginning and end date, and unique in its deliverable, never been done before. So project management itself is the application of knowledge. That's really what you and your team have. Skills, you and your team, and the tools and techniques. Those are really the processes to achieve the project requirements. So it's the knowledge and skills you and the team bring with the processes, the tools and techniques to meet the requirements along the way. I mentioned the process groups. So if you look in the PMBOK guide, you'll see it divided by process groups. There are 5. These 5 process groups group together all of the processes that should work well together. That's why they have process groups, right? In planning and initiating, there will be different processes highlighted that you should focus on. And there are 10 knowledge areas in the PMBOK guide. These are your subject matter expertise. You're not the subject matter expert. You will have a requirements expert, a schedule expert, a budget expert, a quality expert, a risk expert. Those are people on your team running these environments as you read the PMBOK guide, think through that. You'll have a team of experts doing this. Yours is called integration at the top. And integration are the processes you use to integrate all of these other knowledge areas along the way. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Project stakeholders. I already mentioned one level of success in project management is the triple constraint. If you meet scope, schedule, and cost, bam, you have success in your project. But another measure of success, some projects don't always achieve those objectives of meeting the triple constraint. So another measure of success is, did you satisfy the stakeholders? The key stakeholders are the decision makers. So stakeholder basically is anybody impacted or can impact your project, either negatively or positively, right? And here are lots of examples of stakeholders. I differentiate a key stakeholder as somebody that is a decision maker, right? But a stakeholder is anybody that is impacted by or can impact your project deliverables, either positively or negatively. I mentioned the 10 knowledge areas. Those are your subject matter expertise. You don't have to be an expert in them. You have to be knowledgeable enough to ask the right questions as a project manager. And that's what the PMBOK guide gives you. And that's why we're using it in this course. It gives you enough background to ask all the right questions along the way. And notice that in first bullet, project integration is the overarching function. That's because that's what you do. You own that as the project manager, and it's the way that will allow you to manage all of the subject matter experts